Hi, I'm Celeste Roseberry. As a part-time itinerant speech-language pathologist in the schools, a lot of times I'll get a referral of an English learner who they think might have a language impairment. What I've learned is and before I actually go into formal testing, I like to take a case history, a very thorough case history. So using the same case history form in this video, I interview 3 people that are involved with Shao, a Chinese third grader who they think might have a language impairment. I interviewed the Chinese interpreter who's worked with Shao, I interviewed the classroom teacher, and I also interviewed Shao's mom. And the goal of this is to see if there's any patterns that they're all concerned about. And so as you watch this video, see what you think. Are there patterns that each one of these folks brings up that are concerns that would warrant a full evaluation for a language impairment? So Ms. Lee, thank you so much for coming in today to discuss Shao. I know that you've been working with him since 2nd grade, right? Okay, so you've been working with him for about 6 to 8 months?
That's about right.
Okay, great. And Ms. Lee, how many years have you been in the school district?
I've been in the district for about 3 years, and I've worked with about 150 or so Cantonese students.
Okay, so 3 years in the district, about 150 or so Cantonese-speaking students. So, in your opinion, how does Shao kind of stack up against these other kids in terms of his performance? Is he slower? Is he faster? Is he about the same?
Well, he stands out a little bit in that he does work a little more slowly. We only work in Cantonese, and he just requires a lot more attention, a little more time. I have to repeat things quite a bit for him. And his sentences are pretty short. He's 9 years old, but I'd say he's probably working at about a 6-year-old level in Cantonese.
Wow. Okay, so again, he's 9, he's working at a 6-year-old level in Cantonese. Okay. So is he able, when you're working with him in Cantonese, can he tell you a simple story in sequence, or does he kind of mix it up? How does he do?
It definitely gets jumbled in his head. He leaves things out. And it's not in quite the right order.
Okay, so not in the right order, okay. And how about maintaining a conversation with him? How does he do there?
You have to drag things out of him a little bit. He doesn't really take turns too much. It's usually I ask him a question and he gives me a very simple, brief response.
Okay, so would it be fair to say, I think we have already covered this, but that the responses are in Cantonese are briefer and simpler than those of other Cantonese-speaking students?
I would say so. Yeah, I would expect a kid his age to engage a little more.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's super. All right, so in terms of just some other things, how about when you give him directions in Cantonese for a task? You said you have to repeat yourself?
Oh yeah, sometimes as many as 4 to 5 times, and even then I feel like he forgets.
Okay, so speaking of forgets, what happens when he comes back? Like, let's say you see him on Monday and then you work with him again on Wednesday. Does he remember the information you've been over on Monday?
No, not really. His memory is not super.
Okay, all right. How about his abilities in basic routines in the classroom? Like, for example, you know how all the other kids know to line up for recess, hang up their coat, all that. How does he do with just basic classroom routines when you're working with them?
It's the same thing. He has issues with it, remembering what they are. It seems that most of his other classmates at this point in the school year have picked up the routines, but he's still struggling a little bit.
Okay, so he's definitely standing out even among the other English language learners. Okay. All right, well, that really is helpful. Thank you so much for coming, in and sharing that information with me. Anything else about him that you can think of in terms? Oh, I know. There's one more thing. I knew there was something else. How does he get along with the other Cantonese-speaking kids? Does he have friends? How does he do?
No, not too much. He seems kind of like a lone wolf. He doesn't approach other kids, and they seem to kind of ignore him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, Miss Lee, thank you. Email me if you think of anything else, but it's really been helpful to get your opinion on Shao. Okay?
All right.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Robert, thanks so much for coming in to discuss Shao's performance in your 3rd grade classroom. So You've been in the district for how many years?
About 15 years.
About 15 years, okay. And about how many English language learner students would you estimate that you've taught in that 15 years?
I would say in the hundreds.
Okay, in the hundreds, all right. So you said to me that Shao was just sort of below the other English language learner kids. What are some of your specific concerns about that?
Well, I think that in terms of his oral and written language, he doesn't perform the same way that the other students do. I notice both when he's speaking in class and when he's writing. Some of the other students who come from an ELL background are definitely ahead of him.
Okay, all right. So what are some of the things you've done in terms of classroom modifications to help him out? Because I know you've already been doing some stuff.
Yes, he has a peer buddy that tries to help him out, making sure that he's helping him with writing down homework assignments, making sure that he can check in with him. Preferential seating, I've got him sitting close to the front of the classroom. And he still struggles. He needs a lot of repeats of information. He needs a lot of help remembering things, remembering homework as well.
Okay, and I know you've been working with Donna Lee, the Cantonese speaking aide, and kind of doing all of those things. So how does he do in terms of just telling a simple story and sequence in English in class assignments?
It's difficult for him. We'll get part of a narrative sequence back. We might get, if we're asking for a retell of a short story or a retell of an event, like a field trip, we might get some characters, we might get a setting. Sequence of events is very difficult. We just don't get a full picture of what really happened in the story or what really happened during the event.
Okay, all right. And how about maintaining a conversation, even with his peers? How does he do with that?
Simple questions are fine.
Okay.
Very basic, simple questions are fine. Basic needs and wants and interpersonal communication. But when it goes beyond that, it's problematic.
Okay, and more problematic again than those of the other English language learners in the classroom.
Yeah, there's definitely something different.
Okay, how about his relationships with the other Cantonese-speaking kids? Does he have friends, or how does he do, especially at recess on the playground?
Sometimes I see him sitting by himself, particularly if the activity involves a lot of language. He seems to be intimidated by that, and he hangs back.
Okay, all right. So he's pretty behind academically that you said. How about responding to directions? Like, let's say that you give the class a 3-step direction, like close your notebooks, get your lunch money, and line up at the door. How does he do with those classroom directions and compared to the other English language learners?
When we get beyond 1-step directions, I notice it's difficult. And when we get to 3- and 4-step directions, he'll miss part of the message.
Okay, even when everyone else is catching on.
Even when the other students, including the other English language learners, are catching on.
And this is November, so he's been in class since August.
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
So he should pretty much be getting it by now. Have you noticed, I think you said this, that he requires more like repetition, more repeats than the other students? Can you say a little more about that?
He does, particularly when the directions are heavily orally based directions. I've got to make sure that I go over it with him at least once or twice and have him check in with his peer buddy.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And then how about, you mentioned to me, I know at lunch when we were chatting about him, that you noticed some sort of fine motor issues like pencil grip cutting, things like that?
Pencil grip, cutting, and writing. His handwriting has been a struggle. Definitely a struggle, and I understand it has been from previous teachers too.
Yeah, I saw that when I checked his Cume
Yeah.
file, that there's definitely kind of a
Pattern.
definitely kind of a pattern there. Okay. Well, thanks a lot for coming. Anything else that you can think of that you want to say about his classroom performance that you've observed that concerns you?
No, just that we'd like to find out what we can do to help him.
Definitely.
And I really have a sense that it has something to do with language in a big way.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate
My
you
pleasure.
coming in and chatting about him. So I'll be in touch about a full evaluation.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so Ms. Chan, thanks so much for coming in to discuss Shao. I really appreciate that. Yeah, he's, really having good behavior in 3rd grade, but we talked and emailed about the fact that there are some issues. So I wanted to chat with you about his development in Cantonese. Do I understand from our communications that he spent most of his time with his grandparents for the first 5 years while you and your husband worked?
Yes, we were working full-time, and so he spent a lot of time with my parents, and they speak Cantonese.
Okay, all right. Did they read and write with him very much, or did they just, kind of talk to him? How was that interaction?
No, not so much reading, just talking about daily activities. they were kind of tired and older, so I don't think he got a lot of interaction with them like younger parents, but
Okay.
that's mainly his situation.
All right. Well, for what it's worth, that's pretty typical from what I hear. Okay. So, I understand he didn't go to preschool, right?
No.
Okay. Didn't go. He was with them. Do you remember how old he was when he said his first word in Cantonese?
He was about 2.5.
Okay, so about 2.5. And then how old was he when he put two words together? Sort of started saying like short little phrases like more juice, stuff like that.
About 4 years old.
Okay, all right. And I know he's been just here at James Madison School in Sacramento the whole time. You guys have a really stable home. He hasn't moved around or anything. No, okay. Vision and hearing, any issues that they've brought up at Kaiser at all?
No, it seems like he's fine with both of those.
Okay, perfect. So, what are your basic concerns in terms of his language?
My parents noticed that he doesn't really speak a lot, and he tends to point to things when he wants it or gestures. He just doesn't really like to speak in general in either Chinese or English.
Okay, so, and all right, we emailed a little bit about that, but I just want to confirm that. So lots of pointing, not a lot of talking. Okay, what did the pediatrician say when you talked to him?
He said that it's probably because he's growing up in a bilingual home and that he would be fine and would outgrow it. But we have concerns because it's been so long now.
Right, and I know that you told me that you expressed those concerns pretty consistently, but the pediatrician kind of kept telling you, don't worry.
That's right. That's the response I keep getting.
Okay, all right. So some other specifics, Ms. Chan, and this is really super helpful. Is there any family history of learning problems? Did I remember something about an uncle back in China having a little difficulty?
Yes, I do have an uncle who is a slow learner. I've been told he was a slow learner. He had a little bit of problems in school.
Okay, all right. But you and your husband, obviously, you guys have really good jobs, and so yeah, you go. Okay. How about he has Shao has 3 brothers and sisters, right? And he's the
Right.
youngest. How does, in terms of his learning in Cantonese, how does he compare to his siblings?
Oh, he's a lot slower.
Really?
Yes, he's always been a couple years behind them developmentally, and especially with language, maybe even more than a couple years behind.
Okay, so again, even in Cantonese, you notice a big difference between him and them.
Yes,
okay.
in both
Well,
English
he's not
and
the youngest,
Cantonese.
he's the middle, right? He's the second child, I think?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's right. So you had said something to me before about his ability to follow directions at home. So you're giving him directions in Cantonese. You're saying, get your coat, get your backpack, grab your lunch, and come to the car. So that was 4 things. How does he do with stuff like that?
He doesn't tend to remember all of the steps. When I give him a multi-step direction, like he might forget to bring the lunch. He
Okay.
might grab his coat and come to the car and forget the lunch.
Okay, so he'll do maybe 1 or 2 of the things, but
Right.
it's pretty consistent that he doesn't remember.
Right.
Yeah, all right. And then you mentioned that you had that your family uses chopsticks pretty much to eat, which is awesome. How you said something about that when he tried to learn to use chopsticks, he had some issues with that.
His coordination isn't really too good. He's really not that good at zipping zippers or buttoning buttons. And as far as the chopsticks, we gave up. We just gave him a spoon and a fork because he wasn't doing well with that.
And how's he doing at tying his shoes?
He's still not able to do that, and we
Okay.
try to look for the Velcro shoes.
The Velcro, okay. And you said something to me about Velcro pants because he doesn't like zippers.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
They're hard to find, though, as he gets bigger.
And then, were there some issues in PE? Did the teacher, I'm remembering something about the teacher kind of calling you and talking about some issues in PE. Would you remind me of what those were?
He just wasn't very coordinated with movement, like running and kicking a ball at the same time. When it was
Okay.
involved some coordination of physical movements, he wasn't so good at that. He tends to stumble or fall.
Okay. And it's noticeably like slower than the other kids.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So it kind of sounds like we're heading toward a full evaluation of his language skills. How does that sound to you?
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Okay, because he is in 3rd grade, and I know you guys have been really supportive at home and tried to follow through. But okay, well, good. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate that, Ms. Chan. And I'll be in touch with you for some signatures and to set up an assessment for him, and then we'll go from there.
Fantastic. Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care. So in this video, we just saw me interviewing 3 individuals concerned about Shao, a Chinese student who may have a language impairment. I talked to the interpreter, the classroom teacher, and also Shao's mother. We see that all of them were concerned about very similar things, and so from this point on, I'm going to go ahead and get all of the things together, the forms signed for a formal evaluation for language impairment, and then assuming Shao does have a language impairment, we'll put him on an IEP for speech and language. Thanks for watching. See you next time.